Fade it down. Fade it down. Hey, everybody. Welcome to On Cinema, Tim Heidecker's podcast that covers the world of cinema. And this week, we will be talking about the films of James Bond, the top 5 James Bond movies. And there's quite a few of them. My name's Greg Turkington. I'm normally the guest on the show, but this week we're turning things around, having a little bit of fun with it. And I'm here to talk to you about the top James Bond films of all time, the top 5. And my host or guest or, host, the guy who owns the machinery is none other than Tim Heidecker. Tim, good to see you back and glad we're back talking about movies.
Hey, everybody.
So, have you seen a lot of these James Bond movies?
No.
Well, I have. I've seen them all, and multiple times in some cases. And let's sort of run through them and discuss our favorites, what we like about them, and what we don't like about them.
Okay.
I'm going to go not in any particular order, but I'm going to deal with 5 that I feel if you have to start somewhere, these would be the 5 to start with. First, I would say Die Another Day. This one was an exceptional movie. It's a classic. Pierce Brosnan plays Bond and does a terrific job. Takes place in Hong Kong and Cuba. And as always, some beautiful women, some fancy gadgets, and a lot of thrills from beginning to end. I truly recommend Die Another Day.
And what's the next one?
The next one on my list is The World Is Not Enough, which, again, Pierce Brosnan is masterful as James Bond, 007. And there's an underwater finale in this one that is, well, I don't want to give it away, but it's mind-blowing. If you like underwater chase scenes and that type of thing, boats. This is a pretty genuine James Bond classic. And if you haven't seen it, I believe it's available on DVD as part of either the James Bond Classic box set or buy it individually, but it's definitely one you need to check out. Tim, what are your feelings about this one?
I haven't. Which one was that?
The World Is Not Enough.
No, I haven't seen that one. I saw the one with James Bond with Sean O'Connery.
Okay.
Sean Connery with the.
Those are good too.
Yeah, keep naming them because I.
Well, the next one on my list, and it's hard to make this list. I want to add. These are all great movies, and to go through and pick just 5 is tough. But we had to do it for this podcast, so we don't have time to go through them all, unfortunately. But one of the ones that I love the most, and I'm sure you love the most too, is The Spy Who Loved Me with Roger Moore. And this one takes place in Europe. They go to Egypt. Barbara Bach is in the movie, who's beautiful eye candy for all the guys out there. And it's just a very exciting film. It really has everything going for it. The credit sequence is amazing. The theme song is great. Barbara Bach is definitely one of the most beautiful of the Bond girls. And Roger Moore is arguably the ultimate James Bond. So you will want to see The Spy Who Loved Me from 1977. It's a very memorable film. Tim, what did you think of it?
Never saw it.
Okay, well...
2 more to go.
Now you have a chance.
2 more to go.
My next film on our look back at the films of Ian Fleming's James Bond, 007, is Tomorrow Never Dies. Did you see this one? Pierce Brosnan.
Wasn't that? Did you mention that one already?
No, I didn't. And it
was the first one.
It would be
what
on
was
any.
The first one you mentioned?
The first one was not Tomorrow Never Dies. The first one was Die Another Day.
Oh,
so it's a pretty different film. This one involves a Chinese criminal who's trying to destroy the world, and of course, 007 is always going to be the man to stop crooks from destroying the world, and that's why we love him so much, and that's why we love this movie. And if you haven't seen it, now's your chance. Tomorrow Never Dies.
And the number one?
Well, these aren't in any order. These are my top 5, though.
Oh, okay.
And the next one on the list is none other than The Living Daylights. And this one's got Timothy Dalton as Bond. And I think Dalton did a great job as James Bond, maybe a little bit underrated even. he definitely brings the suave, smooth, debonair Bond into focus, and I kind of like that, and I kind of like the film too. So if you have a chance, do check out The Living Daylights, one of our top 5 James Bond movies of all time. And that should do it. That should wrap it up. Again, if you have a chance to see any of these Bond movies, you're going to enjoy them. These are the 5 that I particularly enjoyed, and I would love to hear from you if anyone has any disagreement or has any Bond movies that they want to fight for. That's always going to be a fun fight. So for On Cinema, thanks for tuning in to our tribute to James Bond.
Make something about the website.
And the website is OnCinemaPodcast.com. And from there you can view or listen to any of our past episodes. We've got 40 episodes in the can, plenty more on the way. We're getting back into the movie format that we sort of got away from. And it's going to be a good season this year. A lot of good movies coming out. We'll be there to cover them and to talk about old movies, favorite movies, movies you may have missed, overlooked movies, and movies that you just didn't like. And you want to know that you don't like them so you don't make the mistake of watching them. And we're always here to help you out with that. So grab a bucket of popcorn, fasten your seatbelt. On Cinema is back.
Thank the guest.
I'd like to thank, it's kind of funny. I'd like to thank the host, the creator of the show. Tim Heidecker has done a great job with this show, and we'll be back in the director's chair, as we call it, with the next episode of On Cinema, covering new movies and old movies and movies all the time on cinema with your host, Tim Heidecker. Tim, thanks for giving me the opportunity to sit in the director's chair and talk about the great films of James Bond, and I hope that the listeners enjoyed this.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure they enjoyed this one. We'll see what they have to say.
And that was On Cinema, and tune in next week when we will be talking about some new movies and some old movies. On Cinema, your friend in the movie seat.
If you ever listen to the show, I usually end with thanks for listening. So,
what?
Say you say.
Oh, well, I did say that. I thanked everyone for listening.
Say thanks for listening.
All right. Thanks, everyone, for listening to On Cinema, the podcast that covers movies and more. Hopefully a little less of the more, a little more of the movies. And tune in next week when we'll be looking at, hopefully, the films of Peter Sellers and the Pink Panther. On Cinema, thanking you for tuning in.
Hey everybody, you're listening to On Cinema podcast. My name is Tim Heidecker, your host. Hope you enjoyed our little show last week with our guest host, Greg Turkington, talking about the Bond movies. That was fun. I'm going to be talking about the Pink Panther in a little bit. My guest is Greg Turkington.
Hey, guys.
And fulfilling some promises. I got to say something. I was driving, before I get to the driving story, I was getting some pants hemmed. I always go to this, I won't say the store, although maybe I should, because maybe I'd get an endorsement. And I always get a size, when I need pants, I got a pair of blue pants, I got a size 38, 32 is really the only size that 38 comes in. But I could do more of a 30 is better. So I always go in and get them hemmed. So I go into the local dry cleaner, and I hadn't even tried the pants on because I just knew that it was a 32 is going to be too long. So I go in, and I try the pants on, and wouldn't you know it, the pants fit like a glove. They fit perfectly. The length is fine, maybe a little long, but the woman said if I just wash them, it shouldn't be a problem. And so, anyways, it's kind of funny. Your expectations of how things are going to go sometimes get shifted a little bit. And after all, we are in a crazy, crazy world. And it's I bet you that those pants were made in China, and I bet you that whoever made those pants were not measuring them to the way that they used to measure pants, and so it is a crapshoot when you get pants. Sometimes, in this case, it worked out for my in my favor, but boy, I have had so many times when I've tried on clothes, and the sizes that I know are my sizes do not relate to the sizes on the clothes, and that's what happens when you don't get that made in the USA quality. And listen, there's a lot of reasons for that. But keeping the show moving along, we're going to be talking about Pink Panther with my guest Greg Turkington in a little bit. I wanted to share this story with you. It is from one of my favorite websites, Infowars.com, which is a great site. And boy, they're reporting on stuff that nobody else is getting near. I mean, they talk about nuclear. And speaking of nuclear, look at this story. It came out just a couple weeks ago. It just came through it says August 2nd on here. So that's about 6 weeks ago or so. 7 weeks ago. But the story is Russia, you can look this up. Russia moves nuclear missiles to Cuba. We go, well, you mean August 2nd, 1960 or whatever? No. A report out of Pravda, quote, Pravda, which is Russian, quotes President Vladimir Putin. What did I say about this guy? He's not to be trusted, as saying that Russia has moved strategic meaning that's where they need to be in case of war, nuclear missiles to Cuba in response to the United States' continuing efforts to encircle Russia in Eastern Europe. Does this ring a bell to anybody? I'm too young. I didn't live through the Cuban Missile Crisis, but my dad did, and my grandpa did, and I remember growing up, them telling me stories that we really didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't know whether or not the whole country was going to go to war, and that the bombs from Russia that they planted in Cuba, which is only a 90-mile sail or motor ship from Florida, those bombs could have been easily sent to New York, our own government in D.C. Trust me, maybe that could. No, I won't say it, but you know what I'm thinking. Wouldn't be the end of the world. But so then listen to this. It goes on. It says the article written by Lubia Latko, some name, explains how Russia is reviving its military operations in Vietnam, Cuba, and the Seychelles. I don't know what that is, but unbelievable. I mean, what is it? And you know why? Is because they see a weakness. They see Obama as this guy that they can just this guy is a complete pushover. He shouldn't be in the White House. And he won't be, So the story goes on. However, with military defense system under the auspices of NATO in Europe, at the end of the minute, the process will be shattered. The Russian Federation has fulfilled all terms of the agreement, even though I'm trying to get to the place where I saw, which really kind of freaked me out. With the full consent of the Cuban leadership, on May 11th of this year, our country has not only resumed work on the Electronic Center of Lourdes, whatever that means, but also placed the latest mobile strategic nuclear missiles, quote, that they did not want to do in the amicable way. Now let them deal with this, says Putin. You have been warned, friends. All right, we'll see you next week. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, America. Good afternoon. Good evening. Whichever time of day you're listening, we welcome you back to another episode of On Cinema. You're listening to the only podcast that talks about movies of the past, present, and talks about them in an interesting and intelligent way. I got a guest here with me. He was on last week, didn't get a lot of words in edgewise, but hopefully we can rectify that this time. My big mouth just went for a long walk. And I had too much on my mind, and I regret it. And I got a lot of comments from you guys out there that I talk too much, and I'm working on that. I got a lot going on up in the head, and a lot of thoughts that I need to get out. But it wasn't fair to my guest, and he's here with me again. Is Greg Turkington.
Hey guys, glad to be back, and yeah, no problem about last week. We'll make up for it with this one.
All right, well, today's movie is Runaway Train.
Yes.
Runaway Train from 1985, directed by Andrei, Konchkov, it's a Russian name, Konchklovsky, I guess. And it's I guess it's not a foreign movie, but it's got a lot of great actors in this movie, and it's a bit of an adventure. Greg, what is your memory of this movie?
This is one of my favorites. This is one that you just can put on the tape any time of the day. It's going to be fun if you've got company over, some sort of informal get-together with friends. Slap this one on. People really enjoy it, and it's that type of a movie. It's a lot of fun.
Cool. Well, Runaway Train is has a lot of great stars in it. You got Jon
Voight. You've got Eric Roberts, Rebecca De Mornay, a little bit of eye candy there, and it's a thriller. It's pretty exciting. Imagine, if you will, a runaway train and what it would be like to be on a runaway train. And that's pretty much the gist of the movie, but it keeps you on the edge of your seat.
But Jon Voight is so great in this movie, and he's always, kind of playing different parts. And, I think of Midnight Cowboy and
Deliverance.
And,
Looking to Get Out.
It's interesting because he was a leading man, and then I think over time sort of became more of a character actor. He played more sort of... sometimes he'd play the bad guy, and sometimes, he'd play a person with a different kind of accent. Very diverse, and has a great range as an actor, wouldn't you say?
I would say that also about Eric Roberts, who's wonderful in this movie. And this is I guess you'd call it an adventure.
Well, I got to say this. I love Jon Voight. I love...
he's great, yeah.
I love his... if you've seen him recently, this guy is such a patriot. He's such a, he's so brave. He's so, as a lot of you guys know, about 99% of Americans, 99% of Hollywood actors and producers and directors are these liberals who...
well, he's got a couple of Oscars, too. He's been nominated, and he's actually won a couple of Oscars.
Well, I know, but my point is that's great, and he deserves the Oscars he's won. But just like Clint Eastwood he's one of those rare guys that gets it, and he understands what's really going on in America, and he's not afraid to say it. This is a guy that could... If he wanted to play it safe, he could just toe the company line of whatever X, Y, and Z wants to be said about we're voting for Obama and we believe in X, Y, and Z. But listen to this. I pulled this clip because I knew we were going to be talking about...
Is this from Anaconda?
This is Jon Voight on Huckabee.
We're witnessing a slow and steady takeover of our true freedoms.
This is Jon Voight.
We're becoming a socialist nation. And Obama is causing civil unrest in this country.
Yep. And
what's going on? Well, we see, first of all, that the stimulus package didn't work.
Right.
And now we see the government taking over banks. We see the government taking over over car
car
companies,
companies,
insurance. We're being told what cars we can drive, how much we can make, and now they want to take control of our health care and tell us.
So that's John Voight nailing it, actually saying that, I love the name of this YouTube clip. If you want to see the whole thing, it's this kills me. John Voight tells the truth about Obama, period. Wake up, America, period. Love that, and love the uploaded by Kevin Nash is cool. And so Kevin Nash, if you're an On Cinema fan, write me. I want to thank you for posting that video. And thanks to Mike Huckabee for having John Voight on. So John Voight is the real deal. He's obviously a great actor. He belongs in the On Cinema Hall of Fame, not only because of his great performances, but also because he is a true American. He's a true patriot, and he loves this country just the way I do. And we should have more John Voights out there, not these others. In fact, if you look at the first John Voight movie, I don't know if it was his first movie, Greg, you can correct me if I'm wrong about this, but Midnight Cowboy, there you have the opposite, the two extremes of what's right in Hollywood when it comes to political beliefs and what's wrong. Because as far as I know, Dustin Hoffman is a liberal, and he's probably voting for Obama, and he thinks that we should this should be a nanny state, and that we should be getting all our food for free. And as opposed to John Voight, who played the other.
That's not really what the movie's about, though.
No, I know it's not what the movie is about, but I'm saying there we have a clear distinction, a black and white scenario from the original movie, from Midnight Cowboy. There's Dustin Hoffman, and there's the stark opposite, the great American John Voight. And we should all aspire to be more like John Voight. Thank you, everybody. Check out Runaway Train. Greg, where can we see Runaway Train?
It's on video, it's on DVD, it's on TV all the time. It's a great movie.
Thanks for listening. Hello, everybody. Welcome to On Cinema. My name is Tim Heidecker. I am your host. Happy to be here. Happy to be speaking with you once a week about movies and about whatever else is on my mind. Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it to our children in the bloodstream. It must be fought for, protected, and handed on for them to do the same. That's a quote from the great Ronald Reagan. Something I like to remember as much as I can. I know it seems a little hokey, but right now, this month, I mean, it's something we got to remember, and everybody's got to be telling each other. Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. Please, please remember that, and remember to vote Mitt Romney in November, because we cannot stand another 4 years of this president. And I tell you, folks, we are standing at a crossroads, and the very definition of what it means to be an American, the definition that has existed for over 200 years, that very definition is on the cusp of changing. The definition will change. People will look back, the history books will look back, and they will have to put a mark and say, this is where things changed. Or this is where things went on the road to recovery, and we start to come back and reclaim who it is we are and what we are about. We are about freedom, liberty, and justice. My guest is Greg Turkington. Greg, thanks for coming on the show.
Hey, guys.
And our movie today is the film from Richard Gere and from Julia Roberts, Pretty Woman.
Pretty Woman from 1990. And you forgot to mention, or maybe you were saving it for later, that it also stars Jason Alexander, who we all loved on Seinfeld.
And directed by?
Gary Marshall from Laverne and Shirley.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about what this movie is about. This is a sort of a hooker with a heart of gold kind of movie.
Exactly. Richard Gere stars as a wealthy man who hooks up with a hooker, Julia Roberts, and it turns into quite a sweet little romance. So the film does have a twist. And even though it seems like a little bit of an unsavory theme, it's actually fun for all audiences. It's got a good message, and it's something that we highly recommend here on Cinema.
Well, it's a fun movie. It's a great romance, and it's got some good comedy, some good performances. Not to say that I'm the biggest Richard Gere fan.
He's made some good films over the years. I think he's underrated. I think the first of his earlier films that really struck a chord was American Gigolo from 1980, which was a little gritty.
Well, all I remember is him coming up. I don't remember where it was, if it was the Oscars or one of these, where he comes up and starts talking about Tibet and sort of these human rights bullshit things that he gets involved with, and all this. With all the money that we send to these countries, they can't get their house in order. Then at some point you have to cut them off and say, this is your problem. You solve it. I'm not spending any more money trying to make your lives better when we got our own problems over here.
Well, also, Pretty Woman, looking here, it grossed $463 million. So it was quite a successful movie. And it's one of those movies people watch again and again and again. It never gets old. And,
well, let me just take a minute here. Let me take a minute here, and we'll come back to Pretty Woman in a second. But I want to talk about Goldline. If anybody's familiar, Greg, do you invest in gold? Or do you have a?
I do. I do. If you consider my collection of videotapes gold, which I do, I would say that they're worth their weight in gold. Some of the films I've got, and in my collection is Pretty Woman. I actually have 2 copies of it.
Well, let me talk about Goldline, because if you want to actually take your money and put it into something that's actually going to grow instead of the way that, if you got to be nuts if you're putting into things like U.S. securities, government bonds, even the stock market can be a real roller coaster. But gold is the only commodity that has consistently risen in value over the years. Goldline's great. They've got a 50-year history doing this. They've been around since 1960. There's no gimmicks. They're committed to transparent, honest, and responsible pricing. And if you're a first-time buyer, Greg, I'm sure you'd be a first-time buyer with Goldline. You have the right to a refund on your first order, and the price is guaranteed. So diversify now. Get on to goldline.com. I'll tell you what Sean Hannity said about it. He said, for those who are thinking about investing in gold and silver, the place I highly recommend is Goldline. So it's a great way to, if you do have some extra money, if you got some just sitting around in your savings account, or you have some, you want to save for college for your kids or whatever it is, put the money in gold. You won't be sorry. Back to you, Greg, and anything else you want to add to On Cinema? Where can people get this movie?
I think you can get it most anywhere. I got mine. Well, I've got 2 copies. I got one was from an estate sale. The other, I think I got at a Kmart actually many years ago, shortly after the film came out. So, and I still have that original copy. So it's readily available. It's one of Richard Gere's finest, and of course Julia Roberts, who went on to win an Oscar. Speaking
By the way,
of gold, Oscar Gold was Erin Brockovich.
Right, it's great. I'm looking over here at these other Reagan quotes because I brought up a Reagan quote. This kills me. This is great. All great change in America begins at the dinner table. I thought that would be kind of something to chew on.
And Richard Gere in this movie, this is a little bit of trivia. If you notice the scene where he's playing the piano, he actually is quite an accomplished pianist.
Listen to this one. Government's view of the economy should be summed up in a few short phrases. If it moves, tax it. If it keeps moving, regulate it. If it stops moving, subsidize it. So I'm just looking at brainyquotes.com here, and you type in anybody. I wonder if you could type in. Bush. I'm thinking of Glenn Beck, maybe.
Maybe get some quotes from Gary Marshall, who directed this film and who had a background in television. And
good for you.
His daughter
listen to this one. Good for you. Now you have a heart. You can be a liberal. Now couple your heart with your brain, and you can be a conservative. So anyways, Brainy Quote, that's a great site. You put in anybody and get a bunch of quotes. Thanks for listening. Hey everybody, it's Tim Heidecker from On Cinema checking in with you guys. One more week. Got a couple more weeks to go before the big election. And I'm going to be I'm watching the news every day. I'm obsessed with this stuff. I love it. And I think that there's going to be a big surprise. I think that's what's going to happen. I think there's going to be all the pundits and all the people that think they know all the answers to everything are going to wake up the day after the election and say, "What? I don't know. But that's what the polls said." And you know, it's going to be hysteria. But it's going to be good for me and you. So before we get into the show, I just want to say a couple words about gold. Goldline International, goldline.com, is the only place you need to go to if you're thinking about investing in gold. And if you're not thinking about investing in gold, then I don't know what you're thinking, because the best place to put your money these days is in precious metals, and there's no more precious metal than gold. Check out goldline.com. They've been around for 50 years. If you're a first-time buyer, they offer protection. You have the right to refund, and they've got a price guarantee. So it's all you need to know. Check out Goldline. I'd love a Priceline sponsor, anyways. I would love for you guys to check out goldline.com. It is the only place you get gold on the internet, so check it out. My guest today is film buff, film historian, and great guy to know is Gregg Turkington. Thanks for coming on the show, Greg.
Hey, guys.
And we're going to be talking about a movie that I caught on Netflix. I don't know if you have Netflix, Greg, but
I do.
And it is really a great way to see movies that you might have forgotten about. But this one just came out.
I thought we're doing The Fifth Element.
No, we're going to be talking about Atlas Shrugged.
All right, because you'd said that we were going to do The Fifth Element this week, so I had rewatched it.
Well, I apologize, but things change, and in this case, our movie changed, and it's my show, and I have the right to do that. So, have you seen Atlas Shrugged?
No, I haven't seen that one.
All right.
It got, it didn't get a big release, and it was sort of.
Well,
from what I hear, it's not very good.
It was fantastic. It was a terrific thriller. If anyone's familiar with the book, it's a book by Ayn Rand called Atlas Shrugged, and it is really a parable, is the best word for it, about the struggle of the individual and the you have this story basically about a railroad owner who gets the big government, the central government, Big Brother, the Obama administration really comes in and shuts them down and doesn't let them build these trains. We were talking about Runaway Train a few weeks ago, Greg. This would be right up your alley because it has a lot to do with trains. But it's a great movie. It's a great thriller. But it also, man, is it amazing that this woman who wrote the book had this amazing insight into the future, that it's exactly what's happening in the country right now. So it's stunning to watch. I know the sequel, I think, just came out, and it hasn't come to Netflix yet. So I'm dying to wait for that because the book is so long that they had to break it up into two episodes, almost like a Star Wars kind of thing. But Greg, so you haven't seen this?
No, I haven't seen this one. As I said, it wasn't very highly regarded. I think it was a film you could miss and not feel bad that you missed it.
That's because you're reading the garbage that you get that gets put in front of you by the lamestream media. They want you to believe a certain thing. So if a movie comes out that doesn't stick to their doctrine, they of course are going to give it a bad review. Why would you think that would get a good review? It's like, of course it's going to get a bad review.
I mean, there aren't any name actors in it, and it's just not a film that interests most moviegoers. And it's certainly not The Fifth Element.
Well, it's not going to be because you know why it's not a lot of mainstream actors, because those people are all they've all swallowed the poison, they've all swallowed the pill, and they're not going to be a part of a movie that actually tells the truth, So
yeah, well, I mean,
Taylor Schilling is in the movie. Grant Bowler, there's some good actors in this movie. The acting's great.
Yeah.
So, anyways,
Well, I mean, I was told we were doing The Fifth Element, and then you come in with these gold ads that I don't even think you're getting paid for. It's not. This isn't about the movie. This is about. Sorry. This isn't about the movie. It's just another excuse to hijack this show with
No.
these politics that nobody wants to hear. And people
yes, they do.
People are telling me
Yeah,
I'm
but-
getting Twitters from people saying, "Let's
fuck-
get back.
you know what?
Let's
Fuck-
get back to the movies."
Fuck that, Greg. Those people, they're all trying to make a joke of this, and they think that they're goading you along, and there's just as many people on that site and on other sites, on the fucking website on cinemapodcast.com, where you see the comments. People are back and forth. It is not just people not wanting to hear me talk about this shit. It's people that want to. There's some people that do and some people that don't. And there's a lot of people that keep their mouths shut, what I like to call the silent majority, who know that they're just enjoying listening to the show.
Well,
Don't come on my fucking show and say that people don't want to listen to this shit.
Well, I'm going to be part of the silent majority soon because I don't have anything to say about this stuff. I have a lot of information about movies I'm happy to share with people. But if we're not going to talk about movies, especially when I prepared for this episode by rewatching The Fifth Element, which I've already seen 10 times, but I did the research, and if you don't want my expertise, then this could very well be my last episode.
All right. I apologized already for changing the episode on you, okay? I already made that apology. I was clear on that. I'm sorry I did that. If you're not up to date on the big movies that come out, like Atlas Shrugged Part 1 that came out in 2011, I don't know why you didn't see that. You should be ready to talk about these movies. You should be ready if I throw any movie that comes out that's been in wide release that people have seen.
This doesn't even count as a movie because nobody has seen this movie. This is a private project that somebody made, and it's just an excuse for you. I mean, if you switched it to 12 Monkeys or something like that, I could probably go with it. But I haven't seen this movie. Most critics, most film buffs,
most critics haven't seen this movie.
No, they don't.
Oh.
They wouldn't bother watching it.
Most critics. I just want to get your quote on this. Most critics haven't seen this movie.
Yep.
Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying.
Okay. Well, then stand by. Talk about The Fifth Element for a minute.
Well, that's a great movie, but with Bruce Willis, and it's a lot better than this one. It's a science fiction. It's got Gary Oldman is in it, and
Well, I just back to your point. Most critics, quote Greg Turkington, most critics didn't see Atlas Shrugged, right?
Yep.
Oh, okay. Well, because I've got Rotten Tomatoes up here, and it's Clarina Cacciano from the New York Times, Roger Morris, Orlando Sentinel, Sean Monroe, What Culture, Bruce Bretlett.
And they're all reviews dismissing the film, I'm sure, because this isn't...
So what? That's not what you said. Brian Miller, LA Weekly, Ken Hanks, Mountain Express, great, Prairie Miller, Newsblaze, Tim Brayton, Rob Goss. This is Peter Travers from Rolling Stone, for Christ's sake. Peter Travers, Richard Brody from the New Yorker.
Well, you're just making up names.
No, I'm not. I'm looking at it right here. Anybody can go.
Anybody can put anything on the internet. So you could just type a bunch of names and set up a website.
I'm looking at RottenTomatoes.com. I searched for Atlas Shrugged and found just hundreds of reviews.
Yeah,
there's
it's probably
45 reviews.
It's probably RottenTomatoes.com, but it's a 0 instead of an O.
No, it's not.
R0TTE.
Listen to this from Peter Travers.
These aren't real reviews.
This is from Peter Travers. Ayn Rand's monumental 1,168-page 1957 novel gets the low-budget, no-talent treatment and sits there flapping on screen like a bludgeoned seal. So that's a bad review. And that's from Peter Travers, part of the liberal media, so I'm not surprised. But the idea that you're suggesting that no critics saw this movie is not true. And it's another example of why you don't bring a reliable perspective on films to this show. You don't.
Well, that's ridiculous. I mean, you don't know anything about films, and you're just using this to talk about politics, and I'm not going to come back here unless we can get back to what the podcast was successful at, which was information, trivia, facts, figures, behind the scenes information that I had to impart about these films.
All right. Well, there's never been, I've done episodes of this show before without a guest, and I've done show episodes with other guests. It's not necessary for me to have a guest. It's not necessary for me to have you as a guest.
Well, it's necessary if you want any behind the scenes information. If you just want to read the names of critics that reviewed something, then yeah, you don't need me.
All right. Well, there we have it, folks. We have dissension in the ranks. And, sometimes when you believe what you believe, sometimes you come up against people who do not believe what you believe. And frankly, those people, it's their loss. And that's a lesson that everybody has to learn at some point in their life.
Well, the loss is going to be the loss of listeners.
I'm turning your mic off. I'm turning your mic off. Okay? I've had enough listening to you tell me how to run my show. Thank you guys so much. And if you haven't seen Atlas Shrugged, I think that it's a good movie. It has problems, but it tells a great story, and you should listen to it. I gotta go.